going to call to order the Town of Bay Harbor Islands May 8th regular council meeting. It is 7:01 p.m. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a special guest. Come down. The microphone.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a second.
Wait, there's more. Here we go. Bio here. Sophia. All right. Sophia, you were 14 years old, and you've been a resident since 2002. So wow. And you went to Bay Harbor K Grade Center, and now you're in 9th grade at the Young Women's Preparatory Academy it's in downtown, right? And your hobbies are ballet, filming, photography, and traveling, which is very cool. And I can say that I've known your family for, oh my gosh, how many years now? Since you're a little girl. And just another great example of Bay Harbor residents growing up here and just doing great things. So thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for having a privilege, and this is a small token of our appreciation. That's for you. And definitely keep up the good work. We're going to take a picture. Sure. And let me just say for the record, both your parents are researchers, right? So both your mom and dad are research professors. So again, it's just really incredible and really great to have residents in Bay Harbor that just, I mean, it's interesting to see who your neighbors are. So it's very cool. Thank you so much, and keep on the good work. Okay, we're going to continue on with roll call, please.
Councilmember Yaffe?
Here.
Councilmember Tricochet? Here. Councilmember Salver?
Here.
Councilmember Reed? Here. Councilmember Fuller?
Here.
Vice Mayor Buda could not be here tonight. Mayor Leonard?
Here. Very good. All right. We have Representative Geller could not be here due to the extension of the legislative session. Actually is, I believe, still going on or ended today. So we're going to move on to the town's comprehensive financial report. Mr. Manager?
As you said, good evening, everybody. The town's comprehensive annual financial report for the year that ended September 30, 2016 is going to be presented by Michael Futterman from Markham Auditors. Good morning, Mike.
Good evening, Michael.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. For the record, my name is Michael Futterman, and I served as the audit partner on the audit engagement for the Town of Bay Harbor Islands for the fiscal year ended September 30, 2016. I don't know if you have a copy of the comprehensive annual financial report. I'm just going to refer to a few pages through the document. Just so you know, also, the financial statements were issued March 31st. This is the first available agenda time, but again, it was issued March 31st. If you look in the introductory section, Roman numeral page 6, you'll see the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Obviously, you'll see it dated September 30, 2015. This is an award issued by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. When the comprehensive annual financial reports meet certain program reporting requirements, a certificate is issued. Obviously, the town has received this award for many years in a row, and they received it for 2015. And this document actually has been submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association for 2016 in contemplation of receiving the award. If you look at page 1 and 2 are one of the few pages in the document that belong to us as the auditor, and this is the independent auditor's report. The first paragraph talks about what we've audited, which financial statements. It talks about number 2, the second paragraph talks about management's responsibility, which is management's responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. Third paragraph talks about our auditor's responsibilities, which basically says we're required to perform our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards, which is a level above government auditing standards, generally accepted auditing standards. That's required by the state of Florida. But the most important paragraph on page 2 is the opinion paragraph. It's the first paragraph. And it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the town as of September 30, 2016, and the respective changes in the financial position where applicable cash flows thereof for the fiscal year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This is known as an unmodified or a clean opinion, which is really the only opinion you ever would like to be associated with respect to the financial statements. You may or may not have read through the entire document. It's lengthy. As comparison for other CAFRs from other cities, it's actually pretty small, but if you haven't read through the whole document, if you look at pages 4 through 15, which is the management's discussion and analysis, so if you're going to read anything in the document, I would focus on that, because what that does, it summarizes fiscal year 2016 compared to fiscal year 2015, but not only shows the balances, how they change, but why they change, which is very important to understand. You know, not just that you can see balances changed on your own, but you want to understand why they changed. The other thing I wanted to point out was on page 62, which is the budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund, which obviously is your main operating fund. I just wanted to point a few things out there. Obviously, if you'll notice on page 62, you have total revenues, and it shows you your original budget. It also shows your amended budget, or your final budget that you had for the year, and then it shows the actual amounts. So you can see for fiscal year 2016, the town collected about $2.5 million more than they actually had budgeted through, even with your final adopted budget. And you can see to the right side which of the categories were either not budgeted or were in excess of what you had budgeted. On the corresponding side to that, you'll see towards 3/4 way down the page, you'll see total expenditures. And you can see what the original budget that you had approved, and you see what the amended budget which you had approved, and then you actually spent a little bit less than the actual amount, is a little less than your final budget. So obviously the difference between those two all contribute going into your fund balance, at the end of the year. And remember, this is, again, as of September 30, 2016, you're a good way portion through your 2007 fiscal year. If you go to starting at page 80, 86, is the reporting section. And as I mentioned earlier, this audit is performed in accordance with not only general accepted auditing standards, but also government auditing standards. And as a result, we're required to issue a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance with the laws, rules, and regulations. And you will see on page 87, and we'll talk about it in a moment, we did have one finding of non-compliance related to the procurement policy. And we'll go through that in a moment. So that's on the report on page 86 and 87. In addition, the town, for the first time in a while, was subject to the Florida Single Audit Act because of certain grants that you received in combination for the community center and for the Causeway project. And as a result, the town, again, was subject to an additional set of requirements as mandated by the Florida Single Audit Act. And that report starts on page 88 and page 89 and 90. And you will notice in there we did have a finding also related to one of the programs, the Economic Development Transportation Project, of which there were certain issues or certain matters of non-compliance related to that grant program. And again, that's what we've reported. We reported that in writing. If you look at page 91, you will see the extent of your expenditures of the state financial assistance, which is what was subject to audit for this fiscal year. A little over $1 million that you received between the the Florida Department, the Cultural Facilities Grant Project, and then the Economic Development Transportation Project Roads Fund. So, again, those were subject to specific testing and internal control testing. Starting on page 94, you will see the findings that we had. Like as I mentioned, the first finding related to the non-compliance with the procurement policy. And that goes and describes, what we had done related to our testing for compliance. And you can see the recommendation, and then you see the views of responsible officials and planned corrective action, basically what the town was intended to do, which they've obviously already started the implementation process, because I've seen revised, and I think you've seen the first draft of the revised procurement policy, and our recommendation was to make the procurement policy more user-friendly to the town, make it a little less subject to interpretation, because we had plenty of those discussions as we were going through our testing. Where the town would say one thing, the town's attorney might have said something, but it was just really not clear the way it was worded as far as how something should be. But we still reported a finding because in our reading and interpretation, there were certain things that the town needed to address. And I said, they've already started to address them. And then the second finding was related to the specific grant program. They had the Economic Development Grant, where we had recommended, there was a finding related to compliance with the grant agreement. If you're going to obtain grants, you have to make sure that you follow exactly what they say in the grant agreement, because if you don't, you always risk the loss of the future funding from that granting agency if you're not following what they said, or they can always come back and request the money back because you didn't follow the grant. Anyhow, so those are the two findings, and again, town has already put in place a different process, like internal controls over compliance, to ensure that that won't happen again with any future grant that the town receives. And based on that, I will entertain any questions you might have on anything that's in the report.
Anyone have any questions? Anyone? No, I have a question. Okay. Isaac?
Were the same auditing standards that existed during fiscal year September 30th, 2015 exist during 2016?
Yes.
Do you have a recollection of what the audit findings were for September 30th, 2015?
I don't believe there were any, but I don't recall, but I don't believe there were any.
Yeah, I agree. I have the 2015 financial statement in front of me. There were none of these findings.
Well, remember, the grant findings were new for this year because you didn't have the grants in the past, and again, those were under the Florida Single Audit Act, but we were required to test those.
But the procurement finding, which was number 001,
Correct.
that's brand new. None of that was mentioned in 2015.
Correct. The town is subject to, if you look at the Florida statutes, hundreds of pages of statutes. Obviously, each year you have to decide what you're going to test. You can't test 100% of everything. So actually, I think 10 cities this year, we actually decided that we were going to test procurement because it's becoming an issue with the OIG's office is in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. So we had decided, go back one step. Auditing standards require us to incorporate an element of unpredictability into our audits. Every single year we have to pick an item that's something that's different so no one gets comfortable with what we're specifically doing. So we incorporate an element of unpredictability. We decided this last September that we were going to incorporate this, and we did it in about 10 of our cities. We did procurement testing. Obviously things came to our attention as we were starting that there was more issues, so we expanded our testing. And that's why we ended up looking at as many contracts as we did. But that's, again, you have to decide each year what you want to look at. There's, like I said, hundreds of pages of Florida statutes related to operations of any local government, and you can't look at everything. So this was something we had decided, and we did.
Can you do me a favor and define things that you just mentioned in your last statement?
Say this.
Like things happened that forced you to look at other
We've
things?
received a phone call, obviously, from Councilmember Reed, expressing a concern over some of the procurements, and as a result, we expanded what we were doing. We were already looking at it, but we just expanded what we were doing.
How long have you guys been doing the audit for Bay Harbor Island?
I can't remember the year that we started. It could be 2004,
2004?
I think so.
Is that in and of itself kind of a bad audit procedure to not have changed the auditor since 13 years?
No, we have lots of clients. We've been doing the audit for longer than that. You have to understand that within the audit process, there's always new people, new faces, new personnel that are actually digging through the records. So even though you have the same firm, you don't have the same set of eyes looking at everything each year. You might have the advantage of having someone at a higher level that has a higher understanding, but they're not the ones that are digging in and looking at the individual records. So we have actually quite a few local government clients that we've been auditing for more than that period of time, and obviously some less, depending on what they're...
Ron, has anything changed in our procurement process in the last 10 years?
No, no, not basically. I mean, after reviewing this report with Michael, we made a lot of, several changes just to our internal controls. First thing we started was training, to retrain everybody. Our requisition form has been revised to include the actual procurement policy on the back, so nobody could sign off on any requisition without staring at the policy, and to make sure that all the required documents were included on it, in it, and also giving the names, phone numbers, contact people for anybody that provided a bid. And basically was to keep all of the documents of any one purchase or an invoice together. And that was probably one of our things that was most difficult, was pulling everything together so that they could do the review. And in most places we were able to do it, but it was painstaking. So that was addressed. The other thing was, as we talked about the grant, we get grants from occasion, but these were sizable ones, and we overlooked the reporting of a progress report that had to go with the $1 million grant that we got from the state for the bridge. We received the $1 million, but we were missing 4 progress reports that, Mike pointed out, which we submitted. And
did you get any correspondence relating to that from the state itself?
No, we never did. And we had, anytime we were putting in for a pay application, everything was submitted with that. There was long periods of time when no activity was occurring on the bridge, primarily in the beginning of the project. So it was overlooked that every 4 months we were supposed to put in a progress report, which we didn't do. The other thing too, I think is important, is Alan, myself, and JC, we thought it would be a good idea if we did a random testing of our own invoices by one of our assistant accountants that does our bookkeeping, just to go in, pull random reports, and then do a monthly review. This way, just to double check and make sure that we're signing off on everything. I mean, everything does get a lot of review before it gets to get signed off on, but this was just another way of kind of doing what, instead of waiting for the year to do it every month. So.
Mike, one last question for you. When you were contacted by Kelly in reference to the procurement issues, did it dawn upon you that it might be appropriate to speak to the other council members to see if there was any other matters that they might think required attention from the CPA firm?
I guess I spoke to, the manager, the town manager, the finance director. I mean, typically we don't go back to them unless someone has an issue. We would hope that someone would bring it to our attention rather than us trying to bring it out of someone.
So you basically produced a report based on information and provocation that came from one particular council member
Well, no,
without any regard to any of the other council members, basically.
We were performing our testing, and this expanded our testing. We were already set up to do the test. We just expanded after that phone call.
So is our 2015 audit report basically worthless because you didn't have these findings in 2015, although nothing that staff has done since 2004 has really changed regarding our procurement, and we've had several grants granted with no complaints from the authorities that assisted us in those grants?
Well, let me go back. It's two different steps. The grants, they're only subject to testing when they're above a certain threshold. So you haven't been subject to the Florida Single Audit Act or a federal Single Audit Act as far as I can remember back, and it could be 8, 9 years, could even be longer than that. So the grants are a completely different issue. As far as, again, procurement, I couldn't tell you if we tested any of those items in 2004, 5, and 6, 7, that I don't recall.
When you started with the expanded procurement audit procedures, did you have a conversation with our town attorney?
After we did some testing related to some interpretation, or it was a letter that we got related to interpretation of what some of the procurement code. We went to the procurement code, we used that as our guide, and looked at different, that's why if you notice, things we selected were all different items within the procurement code, so we can capture different levels, whether it's regular purchases, emergency purchases, things that went from a regular purchase to an emergency, so we picked different items within the code.
Did the attorney's opinion of our procurement code differ from the opinion that you had?
It wasn't related to the entire code, it was related to one specific item, had to do with recurring projects.
Is that a yes or a no?
We didn't agree with that. That's why we put the finding in here.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes.
Kelly?
Well, first I would like to say thank you very much for your work, and I think it's wonderful when a council member whose duty it is to oversee these issues in town is able to pick up the phone and call the auditor and have a conversation, and I feel very vindicated that you did see that there was at least something there. And I did hold a special meeting in January, and I was criticized by some members of this board for doing that. And really, the person who has taken this very well is the manager, and Ron and I had a very good conversation. He's very positive in the interest of moving forward and improving. I think it's great the things that were uncovered. And one of the things that I did ask for in my January meeting was the possibility of having a forensic audit to look back over 10 years, because, you were already working on those issues apparently, but then, I gave you some more information, the same information that was presented here, transparently. So, I guess that option is still on the table if we want to dig that up, but I think what we're really wanting to do here is to have a code, adhere to our code, and everyone is covered that way. Because like I said to Ron earlier, and he's mentioned here before, it's silly to make do with a code that's difficult to follow and then we don't follow it. Even if the council does later vote to retroactively approve these items, it doesn't look good for us, our town, and it does leave our administrators hanging, and I would like them to be on solid footing. So I thank you very much for your work, and I thank you very much for being there. I don't know if you looked at the minutes of that meeting or the recordings of it, but I did consult with some other public administration professionals that I've known over the years since I worked in government for decades, and they did mention many best practices to me, and I stated them here from my notes in a list, and one of the things I said is that it was suggested that, possibly, at different interims you might change your whole company, but I've noticed, I went back and looked at my emails, and it seems like every year you had different personnel working on our town, because we would get the CAFR from different people. So we don't even have the same rapport with those people. So that was also suggested at minimum. So, it seems to me like you're doing the right thing within your agency. And clearly, you know, you're very independent and saying like it is. So I do appreciate that. And for anybody out there who might have thought that, you know, there was no validity to the search, I say, read our CAFR. And will it be online?
Yes.
On the website? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? I just want to ask Michael a question. You know, I went through this. You know, there's one thing about, first of all, the grant, I can understand where staff, you know, they messed up. My understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding with the grant is that they, for the period of time where they didn't have an expenditure, they erred by not submitting a report, and I'm sure small municipalities that don't have grant staff, you know, larger cities have entire staff people that, you know, handle grants. So, you know, that was a minor mistake, but of course not something that would preclude the state from taking back the money. But when it comes to the procurement, is it your belief that staff tried to, or let's put it this way, do you believe that they were adhering to the intent of the law as far as, you know, I mean, because I can understand where specifically, you know, like, for example, the 30-day rule, you know, this has been mentioned several times between now and when you were doing your report, that the town, on some occasions, did not bring up as an agenda item for 30 days, and the reason that was given by staff was pertaining to the, you know, our strict guidelines on putting agenda items on. But then the manager did either send out an email or tell the council individually that there was going to be an expenditure in their emergency item. Is it your belief that the town staff believed that, as far as the intent, that they were good nature in that, or do you think that there's something more? Because I just want to be clear as far as, you know, if the town is doing the right thing. It's one thing if the law is ambiguous or, you know, needs to be changed, and we're changing it. It's on the agenda tonight. But do you think the town tried, as far as to the extent that they thought they were doing the right thing?
Well, you're asking me in my opinion. There's nothing that we saw within our testing where there was just a complete,
Right.
you know, ignoring the procurement policy that was there. I'm telling you, we had many conversations, and that's why the recommendation was, it really wasn't that clear, and it almost like was handcuffing the town in a lot of things they were doing, because some of the things, the way it was written was,
Right.
it's like you're almost very difficult to comply with some of the portions of the code. So again, based on our work that we didn't come to our attention that someone was intentionally trying to circumvent the whole process.
Nothing nefarious in nature, nothing ill will, said, we're trying to hide this. It's not like that at all. Just want to make
Nothing came to our attention that led us to believe that. Everything was provided to us that we asked for, all the documents that the town had related to specific procurements, and everyone responded to any inquiry we had related to, you know, the process as we were going through it. So.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate it. All right. If no other questions, we're going to move on. Thank you. We're going to move on to request for withdrawals, deferments, future agenda items.
Yeah, I have a future agenda item.
Yep, you got it.
We need to examine parking around construction sites on the West Island.
Sure.
Because there are, you know, I guess there's a few projects going on not far from me. That's the only way I know that there's an issue. But, yeah, I think it might be a public safety item to have all residents possibly have like a sticker that they're Bay Harbor residents, just like, you know, Biscayne Point or, you know, other North Village. Obviously, on Bal Harbor, you need a transponder to get into your house. But I think we need, you know, I think it would assist both code enforcement, law enforcement, and probably the residents as well, if, like, everybody that had a car registered in Bay Harbor had like some type of identifying sticker on it, and that we should consider restrictions on all the places that construction workers could park on the West Island, because there are projects
Why
that...
not the East Island as well?
That's what I was trying to say.
If it's an issue on the East Island as well, I think, most of the parking on the East Island is designated and registered.
But no, actually, Isaac, I think you're right to do this, and we've talked about the stickers, but let's try and look at both islands, because I know for the east as well,
Absolutely.
it's been an issue.
Absolutely.
I
I didn't know it was an issue on the, but yes, if it's an issue, then
Let's talk about it.
we should examine that for, do you have the exact language that you need, or?
Yeah. Can we also look at it also the reverse? Because, you know, when someone develops a project, especially on the East Island, there's supposed to be a parking plan submitted for that project. Can we also look at it the other way, like Isaac said? Because it's not just knowing who the residents are, it's also,
They just submit it.
yeah, but,
But if they don't have the sticker, that's when we'll be able to do something.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
for the discussion for next time, but I agree.
okay, but you...
What is it on the, I'm just curious, on the West Island, it's all public streets, and,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's public
people can park
parking.
anywhere, so, I mean, in what sense?
I don't know.
I agree with you.
I mean,
Some of the streets are just lined with construction vehicles all day long.
Right.
Not just cars, but, you know, trucks and tractors
The
and
block driveways as well.
sometimes block driveways, but, you know, to the extent that it's a public street and anybody can park in the swells. But, I mean, I'm interested in hearing how we can regulate that, but I'm just
But that'll be the
commenting
that'll be the
that they're
discussion.
public
That'll be the
streets.
discussion for the next
Yeah.
agenda, but yeah, I agree.
All right.
No, I think you're all
No, but
doing a solid argument.
honestly,
Figure out how to do
the
it.
way, if you want to know, like, the nexus of my comments, it's, for a couple of days in a row, there was like a yellow cab parked in front of my neighbor's house, and, it just seemed like an oddity, but it turns out that, you know, one of the construction workers is driving a yellow cab, and it's just, you know, he said he saw the guy pull up there at, 8 o'clock, 8:15 or whatever, and like walk to a construction site, and he voiced his concern that his kids or his neighbor's
Right,
kids, could,
Valid
we don't know
Right.
who these folks are, and,
Yeah,
Okay, Jordan, also number 8, I'd like to pull for discussion.
number 8, you got it. Number 8. Okay, anything else?
I have a few future
Okay.
items.
Go ahead.
You know, we had a very short period of time between the last two meetings, so I think we all mentioned some things that hopefully we'll be able to see in June. In addition, not necessarily for the next meeting, but for sometime in the next few months, I'd like to, A, see that comprehensive bridge report that we talked about for the last couple of meetings, and
It's going to be in June.
it'll be in June. Okay, that's great. And then the other thing is Causeway Island. You know, we haven't talked about that in a while, and I think the lease for the gas station is up next year. So at some point, you know, when appropriate this year, maybe after the summer break, are we ready to have any conversations about that and what we're going to do out there?
Is it up?
It's up.
Isn't it up in 18?
About a year.
2018.
Oh. Is it up, or is it an
2018.
extension? Is there
No, they have one more extension.
They have an
actually.
extension, don't they?
Well,
Oh, they have an option.
in any case,
They have an option also.
you know, we've cleaned out the staging area. You know, we have a sign pending and all that stuff. So I'd like to have a discussion about the future of Causeway Island sometime in the next quarter.
Sure. Okay, great. Anything else? All right. Hearing none, town manager's report?
I just have two things, and I don't want to, I should congratulate everybody that went up to Tallahassee. As it was explained, we're a third of the way home on a couple of grants. We received a $200,000 grant towards any renovation we do to the town hall with regards to the police department. Don't get excited, Sean. $500,000. We've been going up for a couple of years for sewer lateral replacement, and it looks right now there's a $500,000 grant to help us along with that. And something that's, I guess, very important to the Broad family. I know Morris Broad had, for a couple of years, was trying to get the Broad Causeway changed to Shepherd Broad Causeway, and the county has done it. Everything that up to the state has been done, and it looks like right now, unless something terrible happens, that'll happen. So it'll be Shepherd Broad Causeway. Secondly, We just deployed a piece of equipment to track vehicle speed and numbers in the island. We deployed it. I have to tell you, it's recording some really very interesting data. You know, when you have the sign out, the police sign, everybody's good when they say police car or police sign that says slow down. This records you and you don't know you're being recorded. The good news is well over 90% of the town drives less than 25 miles an hour. There is a good percentage of them that drive between 25 and 28 miles or 29 miles an hour, which is kind of, you really don't issue summonses for that, and it's hard to tell anyway. And then we have a few frequent flyers that like to press on the gas. The good thing about this equipment is it documents everything, and we don't have enough of it. We want to get some more numbers, but it definitely identifies the time that people are going by fast. So I think from a police perspective, I know it's nice to know when to put out targeted enforcement because we have a limited amount of personnel. So we'll have more to report, and we'll develop a report actually that'll show you the times, the compliance, who's going fast and whatever. But it was nice to know that a lot of people drive less than 25 miles an hour. So.
Can I apologize in advance on the record?
It won't
But that's my report.
Great.
Ron, you're checking both islands, you said?
We just started on this island.
You're
'cause
gonna
that
do
tends to
both,
be,
right?
yeah, oh yeah.
We're just not going to tell you where it's going.
Right, when and where. Exactly. That's all I have, and I guess the next person up would be Dan Brea.
Dan, come on up. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Dan Brea from BNY Mellon to report first quarter performance for 2017. I have along with me a colleague, Charles Sachs, who is working alongside with me on the town's portfolios. Wanted to mention his name for the record in the event that I cannot make it to one of these quarterly meetings. Charles is available to be here and report as well. The average current yield for the town's portfolios is 2.39%. The average current yield for the benchmark is 2.42. The average yield to maturity or yield to call for the town's portfolios is 1.93%. Average yield to maturity, yield to call for the benchmark is 2.11%. Average duration across the town's portfolios is 3.72 years. The benchmark is up 4.06 years. For the first quarter of the year, the contingency fund is up 0.66%, the general fund up 0.65%, and the water fund up 0.66%. Benchmark is up 0.78%. Annualized return since inception, the contingency fund is up 4.44%, the general fund is 4.47%, and the water fund 4.54%. Benchmark 4.77%. At this point, I'll take any questions.
This look better.
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Sure.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Welcome,
Well, how are you?
Charles. In our investment policy, does it say that it's sufficient to just have a Moody's rating versus a Moody's and an S&P rating? Because most of the issues that we're invested in have Moody's and S&P, but I see there's a couple of investments that we have that are, S&P, it says NA. What's up with that?
So the town's investment policy statement specifically only states a minimum rating of single A. So there's some bonds in there that may have a rating that's right, but it is rated single A by a different agency. So to answer your question more explicitly, the policy statement doesn't specify a specific rating agency. It just says a single A rating.
But why wouldn't Premier Health Partners, for instance, have an S&P rating?
Quite simply, they don't pay S&P the fee to cover them.
You mean like private export funding is AAA and then S&P is not rated, so it's...
Correct. That's just a reflection of the fee they pay the rating agencies to issue coverage on them.
I don't have any questions. I do have one last question. Am I reading this correctly? cash and cash equivalents as of 12/31, actually as of 3/31?
Yes.
Oh, so that's just the cash component. So we had $6.3 million in cash. 3/31.
No.
Or total.
In total, yeah. No, we
So wait,
didn't get that in cash.
Yeah, so I guess my question was, how did we make payroll that week? Because if we only had 76 grand in cash, I mean, is our cash management that good?
I'm going to yield to Alan on that one.
We are not using,
Yeah, this is,
we are not using these accounts to operate. We have checking accounts at Bank of America
Okay.
where our payroll was paid out of, and that sort of thing.
Okay, so we had cash flow.
These are essentially your reserves.
yeah, these are separate.
Right, these are our reserves, correct? Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dan, thank you, by the way, for the report. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Great.
Let me know if you need anything else in that regard.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Have a nice evening.
All right, good night. All right, now we have council reports. All right, we're going to start. Councilwoman? No, you're not? Okay. Councilwoman?
I tried to go to the spring egg hunt, unfortunately the weather turned, but it happens, it's South Florida. And I believe we have some events this week coming up. Is it Coffee with the Cops? At 10 a.m. on Wednesday?
11 a.m.
11? 11 on Wednesday, 11 a.m. And it was a great event before. And I'd also like to put in another request for pizza with the police at 6 p.m. or later, so those who are working during the day can join. Any thoughts on that?
Good idea. Sure. Yeah,
Yeah, the
that would be
11
great.
a.m. is a tough time.
Right, 11
Yeah.
Earlier or later.
11 a.m. is weird.
Yeah, it takes a lot of people out of the
Yeah,
possibility
that's
of doing it.
only for non-working folks.
All right, thank you.
Kids for free pizza. All right, Isaac?
Yeah, I had Children's Trust board meeting. It was, actually I had a Children's Trust Finance Committee meeting, which was my first meeting that I attended in 6 years that I wasn't the chairman. It was productive. Actually, I think we had our CAFR also presented, and we're doing well. Thank God.
It wasn't Michael, was it? Very good. All right, Josh?
I'll be quick. First of all, I just want to start off by saying, as you heard earlier, we are in line to get several grants, so significant grants. And I just want to explain to everybody, that is why a lot of us go up and back to Tallahassee. It can be successful, and it's definitely worthwhile for the town to continue its efforts along those lines. As far as in the last couple of weeks, it's only been since last meeting. I did attend the egg hunt. It was a great event again. We raced before the rain to try and get as many of those things as we could get. Releasing the children a little bit early, which was a good idea before the rains came. So that was wonderful. And I also attended the Pelican Harbor dinner as well, as Kelly did as well on behalf of Bay Harbor.
Just briefly echoing what Josh said, I think that the trips to Tallahassee pay off. I think that, it's important that the legislators see not only the council people, but Ron and JC have been up and others, and, just they know who we are. So when I think an appropriation is requested for the town, I think it's looked upon favorably as a result of all of our, direct communications with the legislators. And on a personal note, just a thank you to town members, staff members, and my colleagues here, and all of those who reached out to me in the last month or so after my mom passed away. So thank you for that, and thank you for letting me pick the charity that we're donating our salary to.
Jordan, I have a supplementary report, if I can.
Yeah, it's not Alzheimer's.
I
I was just going to ask what charity, so.
Alzheimer's.
Okay. Very good.
I have because I forgot, it's, it seems like so long ago.
It's okay.
A couple weeks ago, I attended the Southern Municipal Conference, which was held in Jekyll Island, Georgia. I attended that conference at no cost to the taxpayers, because it was underwritten by the Florida League of Cities as an executive committee member. They encourage the executive committee members to go, and they underwrite the price of the trip. And it was very interesting because you guys both mentioned the importance of advocacy in Tallahassee, and really the theme of the Southern Municipal Conference, which was attended by representatives from the League of Cities of 13 different states, was federal advocacy, which is a lot more difficult, but it's something that we always have to keep in our minds. We should maintain a presence in front of our legislators in Washington, D.C., for the same reasons that we go to Tallahassee to, get funding and get grants, et cetera, et cetera. And it was an incredibly productive meeting, and I'm going to give the town clerk some the agenda and whatnot relating to that meeting.
Absolutely. And I'll just be very brief. I also attended the egg hunt, and thank staff for their hard and diligent work. Unfortunately, we can't predict the weather, but besides that, everything went great. I'd like to just ask the manager again on the record if there's a possibility if we can do the spring egg hunt before or on Easter. I know it's not supposed to be an Easter hunt, but I know we're one of the only municipalities that do it after. So if there's a way logistically to do it before a few parents asked me about that, so that would be great. Other than that, we're just going to move on with the agenda. We have now public comment, and do we have any public comment? Yes. Okay, come on in. Okay. Oh, okay. And we gotta also ask anyone that wants to please sign up for Code Red, because obviously June 1st is the start of hurricane season. So we have Michael Salhauser, Dr. Salhauser. See, he's outside. How can I miss him? We assist the king. So, all right. All right. All right, doctor.
King.
All right.
Are we live?
Good evening, doctor. You have 2 minutes. Oh, sorry, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. So, name and address for the records, please.
Dr. Miami, Lord and Supreme Ruler of 1140 96th Street, floors 2, 3, and 5. And 1. We meet again, Kelly Reed. This council has seen fit to send a female henchman to my business to remove my artwork.
You're running out of time, Doctor. Maybe you can tell us what artwork you're talking about.
Exactly. What artwork I'm talking about? Bunch of non-artists that have no feeling for art whatsoever. And on top of that, you are unfair. Unfair that Mr. Louvy gets to put his artwork in the middle of the town and I can't keep my simple, three-dimensional, vertical, flat representation of my soul in my own foyer. So therefore, you leave me no choice. I am forthwith declaring independence from the town of Bay Harbor Islands. Independence from the town of Bay Harbor Islands. And I am invoking my sovereign immunity as a king that I am not subject to any laws of any other government on the planet Earth. We may not be the biggest country on the earth, but we are the smallest. I have a Declaration of Independence in my hand and over 500 signatures on change.org. You will not stop me. Try. But I am a good king and a fair king, and I'm willing to reconcile. Who do I have to bribe? Yeah, they're so crass, they're so crass. Say that to a so crass. Whom do I have to bribe? Okay, we'll talk later. Freedom! Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
I assume this has something to do with code enforcement?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so I guess,
They can take it up with...
I would speak to our town clerk, she would be the person to speak to.
Speak to who?
Our town clerk, she's also director of code compliance, so this is the first I've heard of it, so.
Well, the first you heard of it.
Yes, sir.
But it won't be the last!
I'm sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, doctor.
Good evening.
Thank you. All right, so Maureen, you...
I have your 3 minutes too? A lot of you come forward.
Yeah, Rosie Zion?
Princess Rosie Zion?
Okay, she has to come up.
Please.
Can you translate that for us, Rosie?
Name and address for Rosie.
Rosie Zion, 1140 King Concourse. So, as the king stated so eloquently, we have a piece of artwork in front of our building that we were asked to remove. So, we are here to state that we do not wish to remove it because it's a piece of artwork, it's not a sign. Anything else you'd like me to say?
It's not a sign.
It's not a sign.
All right.
So I mean, am I allowed to ask you questions?
No.
No?
Well,
I could just speak?
it's-
It's a one-way communication?
Rosie, ask the questions,
Yeah.
but we can't, answer them until you're done.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we just want to know, I guess, exactly what constitutes a sign. That's my only question. Why? Yes.
What makes a king?
Okay.
Have a throne and a crown and a princess.
Yes, you do. And a jester. So,
6-year-old will tell you I'm a king.
yes, they would. They would tell you. All right, I'm going to curtsy now.
Thank you for your comments. I would suggest Mrs. Zion and Doctor to get with the clerk and speak to her tomorrow about what the issue is, and maybe it's something that can be resolved. Okay.
Peace in our time!
Just for the record, how many views does the snap of that sign, have per day?
The most, because it's the first.
That's the most, Amelia. But also, people stop and they take pictures themselves. It's quite a tourist
It's a
attraction.
tourist attraction of Bay Harbor.
Okay.
Maybe I should charge you per day.
All right. We have Robert Schreeman?
Yes, right, there you
I'm
go.
sorry.
I use my time as well.
Okay.
We don't yield.
Okay. So do you want to speak or?
You may not yield. You may say sit it up.
Okay, very good. All right, so...
Actually, go ahead. You want to speak?
Ashley gonna speak, Ashley.
Hello. I'm sorry, you have to sign up for... Yeah.
You can't, Rob can't give her
So why don't we do this? Why don't you speak to the clerk tomorrow, and let's see what the issue is, okay?
Excellent.
Very good. All right, so we're going to close public comment. Thank you so much for coming out.
Can I have a duke to the duke?
Thank you. All right. Always. Good night, guys. All right, we're going to move on to our committee reports. All right. And I guess, well, she's not here. So, JC, do you want to do number 4? Sure. Okay, very good.
Consideration and possible action of recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Committee to install 6 shuttle stop signs within the town. These would be only at the stop sign, at the stops where within the town, that the shuttle actually stops at right now.
Right.
There is 1 on each end of the east island, 1 on each end of the west, 2 on each end of the east island, 2 on each end of the west island, or 1 on each end, so there's 2 on the east, 2 on the west. Sorry, there's 1 on that. I want to talk about total.
That's easy for you to say, man.
He knows the movie.
Total of 6. This was an item that I was actually, I wanted to, Arbon and I had talked about possibly putting it on the agenda. They came up with this idea without me even telling them, so they made the recommendation. I bring it to you. I have the information here.
I just have one comment. It's really nice. It's an intelligent, well thought out suggestion from the Parks and Recreation Committee. Kudos to them. If there's any way that we can locate the signs like on existing poles, so we don't have extra poles, because we can just...
Poles and
If I can... If I can use a different, another pole, an existing pole, absolutely, if there is a pole in those locations.
Right, and now the bid that you're suggesting that we accept includes the pole and installation?
Yeah, so if I were to eliminate the pole, it would be cut down the cost.
Right, but the pole is consistent with our existing poles, the old-fashioned...
It matches. Well, the ones on the east island are round, the ones on the west island are fluted. It kind of matches the light poles on the east island, on the west island. So that's the difference.
Okay.
It's actually...
All right.
Jason, let me ask you, is the sign only going to be on one side of the pole?
That's what's going to be my question. Yes, it's only on one
I would
side.
double it up, because you're talking about pedestrians walking from both sides.
I understand, that's a good
side.
point.
So you want to double the cost, is what you're talking about here?
Well, it won't essentially double the cost, it would just be the actual sign. I'd have to order 6 more signs.
All right, can we have a motion for...
I'll move it.
A second is for both
So,
sides.
and it'll, if I add 6 more signs, I'll have to adjust it accordingly.
Right,
but
right.
I'll go with
Now, I'm presuming that the cost of the sign
It's not going to be...
is like only marginally...
It's $2,200.
It's not going to be. It's mainly the installation and the actual pole.
Right, exactly.
Right, okay, so, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Okay, very good. All right, we're going to move to the consent agenda. That's 5 through 9, with the exception of those.
Move it.
The motion, do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, poll vote, so, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Fuller,
4.
Councilmember Reed,
4.
Councilmember Salver,
4.
Councilmember Tricochet,
4.
Councilmember Yaffe,
4.
Mayor Leonard.
4.
Unanimous.
All right, number 8, Councilmember Tricochet.
Consideration and approval of a resolution requested by Councilmember Tricochet opposing any religious and nationally based registration of persons entering the United States of America.
Councilman?
We went over this before. This is the updated resolution. There were some minor changes, and I will say on the front page there actually is a mistake, because it should say persons living in or entering. The resolution itself does actually reflect that. And I'm open for questions.
The only reason I pulled it is just, I have no problem with the concept again. I can tell you, it's the wordsmithing of this. To be honest, it's somewhat of a mess. You've got a couple typos. Since this is, we're talking about getting this thing done here, but you got typos. You've got, just starting here, you've got recognized and, I think you meant sought reparation for the internment on behalf of the internment of the Japanese Americans. You go through, and then the next sentence starts with and I think we just have to reword this. It just doesn't look like it's worded correctly. I have no problem if it comes drafted the right way. I have no problem voting for it, but, unless we're going to rewrite the whole thing here, it doesn't seem as if it's written correctly.
You want to take another, if Frank could look at this, and maybe we can bring this back next month with the grammatical, because it seems like there's a few grammatical changes.
Yeah, these are just...
But it's not the actual verbiage, it's just grammatical.
Exactly. I can...
If you want to go ahead and approve it, I can certainly shape it up so that you can
Is it
go ahead and
Scrivener's error?
sign it this week.
Okay.
You'll have it tomorrow.
Several of
It's
them,
a
but that's
resolution.
fine. Okay, as long as...
Okay.
That's fine. I just don't want
Why
to...
wait a month?
All right, very
Put
good.
our signatures on it.
And quite honestly, it did hit my desk. I looked at it extremely quickly and thought, based upon...
So how about this?
That's my fault.
How about this, since I have to sign it, I won't sign obviously until we have the Scrivener's errors corrected, and if I think that there's an issue, I can, as long as council understands, I can bring it back,
Sure, but for all intents and purposes, the same intent, spirit, and otherwise will
Very
be
good.
there, but in a more thoroughly reviewed document by me. I think I looked at it on my phone a bunch to respond.
All right, good. So we have
No, it's okay.
Okay, so can you make a motion?
Motion.
All right, and a second? Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone against? Okay, ayes have it. We're going to move on to number 10, please.
Consideration and approval of an ordinance on second reading requested by Councilmember Yaffe, amending the parking requirements for existing building uses.
An ordinance of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, amending section 2324 of the Town Code, exempting existing buildings in the B1 Business District from parking requirements, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for effective date.
Okay, can I have a motion and a second for discussion?
I'll move it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay, discussion?
I'll just say that I propose this after talking to Marlene and I think Frank a couple months ago. I think it's beneficial to the business community in the existing buildings. This doesn't apply to any new buildings or new construction in the future. Makes it easier for, retail and restaurants and other uses on the street to hopefully have a successful business and be able to open up in our town without having to be concerned about, the parking requirements which would otherwise apply. I went to the bank a couple times recently, Bank of America, after 9 o'clock, there's just like no place to park. So, in terms of other businesses, and I could walk a couple blocks, it's okay, but I'm saying, in terms of other businesses being able to open up on King Concourse, I think it's helpful that we relax the parking requirements.
Okay, any other comments? Because we have public comments. Yeah.
I just had one question.
Yeah.
Although there are some references in this ordinance to our public school. Our public school is not in compliance with this, right?
That would
Our
be...
public schools not in compliance with
Like the Bay Harbor K.
Right.
I mean,
They are. Because they utilize the garage, right?
Right.
Well,
They are in compliance with this. What about their proposed expansion over the basketball court? Are they providing...
I haven't seen that yet. They have to meet the...
Michael, please.
So if I understand it correctly, if we don't find their parking requirement is satisfactorily met, we can prevent them from construction?
I guess in theory, they're going to go to the State Department of Education that reviews the school plans statewide, and they apply their parking requirement, their other criteria to these plans before they let them move forward. So we have a interlocal agreement with the school district for parking in the garage, which takes care of a lot of the required parking.
But that's for the existing...
I agree.
For the existing, or the last
There may
expansion.
be a need for a modification to that agreement for additional parking based on whatever comes back from the state.
But those plans need to go through us before they break ground?
In my opinion, yes. If you talk to the school district staff, they think they're exempt from anything in local government control. I have an attorney general's opinion that I've given them, that I've seen up and down the coast that says that your school districts are subject to local land development regulations.
Because they have their own building code.
They have their own building code.
They have their own building code.
Right.
Yeah.
They're subject to local regulation.
Well, let me ask you a question. So this is something that, so there seems to be an issue pertaining to that?
Don't know. I haven't seen the new plans. I know in the capital improvement plan there is a proposed expansion to certain grades. I don't know if you've seen it. I haven't seen the plans yet.
My understanding is they're not adding more children. They're just adding more classrooms to have the class size lowered. That's the intent of what they're trying to do.
And it's the upper grades, right? That's 6, 7, and 8, if I understand.
Yeah, they're shifting. When you add more classes, they're not necessarily shifting to add more classes for older children like the middle school. It's just that the classes that they're building are going to be for the middle school. So, for example, there may be another second grade class because they're shifting it over. That's essentially what they've always told me.
We actually wind up with a slightly smaller school next year, too, because of all of the requirements that they had this year for proof of residency.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a slight dip next year.
Yeah, there should be, but it's a slippery slope because you want to make sure that the children that attend the school, live in the district. But if you do too good of a job and you go too low, then you open up the school again. So you're kind of darned if you do, darned if you don't. But I'd be interested to know more about if there's an issue in regards to the school board complying with our code, if they're required to.
Well, again, our code references a Florida statute that assigns the parking spaces. So it's, they're following the state law, if you will.
Well, this ordinance says that they're required to have one parking space for each member of the faculty or staff. They need visitor spots for, one spot for each 50 students. First of all, I'd like to reconcile to see if they're in compliance with our current code, even before, or if we get the opportunity to entertain their plans for expansion.
But this part doesn't change as far as the school, though.
No, it doesn't, but it just brought it, it got me thinking about it.
Okay, maybe this is something that Frank could contact the school board attorney's office and talk to them to see about, maybe just take it a step up. Is that, you think that would be worthwhile?
The attorney that I know down there is the one who, repeatedly, you can't tell me what to do,
Walter Harvey?
Huh?
Is it Walter Harvey?
No, it's a lady.
Okay, well, maybe we can have a call in, so we'll deal with this, and if we need to, we can bring it back. But other than that, any other questions? Yeah.
One thing, I want to catch up. Same thing, we talked about it last time on the bottom of page 3. If you remember, we talked about changing the wording so that we don't have a problem with as far as existing buildings, which we were wording last time.
There's something added in.
No, I know, you changed it, you did change it, but it's still not tight enough, I think. One of the things I want to make sure, because our intent, and I know, Bob, you weren't here when we wanted to make sure that, obviously with the existing building, we wanted a definition of the existing building. And I know you added the language in here, but at the same time, I don't think we included what we wanted to include, which is also what happens if there's a significant renovation to a building. In other words, are you comfortable with the idea that if there's an existing building and it's shut down for a period of 6 months or a year while they renovate and do everything else and have to get a new CO or anything else along those lines, if that then takes away the grandfathering of them and not having to have
No,
parking?
as of this ordinance, whatever's there is there. And if there is additional square footage, they do have to comply with for the additional.
That was not our intent, though. That was not our intent. When we talked about it last time was if let's say there's a small building there, and they do a significant renovation, and they got it, they live in, let's say, it's one story and they add a second story or something like that, because now they're going to put the real estate office from the ground floor on the second floor and put a restaurant on the ground floor. Well,
it's no longer the existing building. That changes the building.
But I think the intent, unless everybody feels otherwise, I think the intent was to make sure that's still an existing building, unless something is torn down.
No, not for the additional square footage.
Existing building means existing building.
I see. I liked it with the concept. I thought we were under the understanding.
We've already made businesses that have added square footage provide spaces for that added square footage.
Right.
That's how we've always interpreted it. If you don't add to the building, obviously it's an existing building.
Right.
If you add another floor, or if you, like in the case of Bank of America, close to start the third floor, add additional office space, then they had to provide the additional parking spaces. That's how we've always done that.
No, yeah, but I think we were trying to address it. I was under the impression we were going to try and do it because we're trying to spur additional restaurants onto the ground floor, so that if one of the one-story buildings on Ken Concourse decided that they were going to try and put a regular office that's down there now up to a second story, just add that on, leave the ground floor and now make that a restaurant. We don't want to say, well, you can't do that because now you have to find parking, which is impossible in your existing structure. But that's the problem.
Yeah, but technically that's a new, they would need a new CO, that's a new building.
Well, that's what I was saying. When we talked about it last time, I mean, if the intent is otherwise, my intent last time when I brought this up was that if it's not that significant a renovation, adding one floor or something like that, we're not tearing down the building, they're still grandfathered in.
They could still come before the council, could they not? I mean, they could still...
They could pay into the parking trust. I mean, that's how you
theoretically, they could do it,
address
right.
that. Or propose something and come before the council, like
Variance.
in the other...
But the problem is, quite honestly, if that's required, as first of all, what's going to end up happening is people are either A, not going to do the renovation, or B, they're going to say, you know what, it's not worth trying to move somebody off the ground floor to put a restaurant in if I've got to incur the additional cost of now paying into the parking trust, which is pretty much what's going to end up happening. or I'm going to have a problem with additional parking requirements, so I'm going to lose my grandfathering. I think we're biting ourselves, I think we're creating a problem. I like the concept. I just would like to have the ability that if we have a scenario where someone is doing a renovation, just a minor renovation, or even adding one other floor or something to try and put a restaurant on the ground floor, that we're helping them out with the parking.
But I mean, if they did a minor reservation, they wouldn't need a new CO, right? I mean, they would have to do a
I think,
major rehab.
I mean, this is your call, but I think that exempting the additional square footage is going way too far, because now you're putting more stress on the facilities. You should pay into the trust. That's why the trust was created. Existing buildings, they don't have a way to provide the parking, which is why I spoke to Bob and said they need some relief. But once you decide, I'm going to benefit by having more rents and having a whole nother floor on top of what I'm having, then it's a different story. It's not the same existing building anymore, in my opinion.
Look, if there's a new development, project that's being presented, we can think of innovative ways of, bolstering their plans if it's something that we want to see in the town.
The problem is nobody's going to actually make a purchase of a building or do anything with that question mark over their head. They'd like to know beforehand what they can and can't do, and adding certain value to the owners on King Concourse. So we're actually trying to encourage them to put additional, restaurants and things on the ground floor.
So you want to just put a different section that relates to restaurants, and if a restaurant comes in on the first floor and there's a significant renovation, then there's certain forgiveness of parking requirements that we're going to grant.
I'm happy to do it, just because that's what we're trying to do, which is what I think is what we're trying to do, add restaurants. I think we can add that.
Well, that has changed from 35 to 100 square feet specifically for
Right.
restaurants.
It's a relief for that already.
But the problem is if they have an existing tenant or anything else, and somebody's going to say, look, it's not worth trying to create additional space if I got to go through all this problem, and it's a question mark. If we are actually saying to them in advance, we want you to try and move that real estate office or whatever else it is from the ground floor, build a second floor, do something else, renovate your building, even if you're adding 50 feet, whatever, nothing, to try and expand to put a restaurant or something like that. That's how we breathe life into King Concourse.
That would kind of be, the one problem is you can't unring the bell. Somebody invests the money and builds, let's say hypothetically that you could even structurally do that to one of these buildings and build a second floor on top, and they get this incredible opportunity, and let's say the restaurant fails, and now you have a vacant property, the tenant on the first floor is vacant. What do? They if they can't find another restaurant, can they they can't unring the bell and go back to retail. So that poses a few other issues that might potentially happen.
I think the wording is, I think the way the wording is here, I understand where you're going, but the problem is I think the wording is going to end up it's going to shut down some of the potential.
Listen, I think we all want to help the business district. It's a double-edged sword. How do we encourage them, but then not overburden them and kill the golden goose? What if, by trying to help them, then all of a sudden there's not enough parking? Where's it going? Where's it going to go? And I agree with Marlene that if there's any additional square footage added, then that will have to, follow the parking trust rules.
Yeah, and the parking requirement is different anyways for offices. If they're going to put offices on the third floor, then the parking requirement is 1 for every 300 square feet of space.
Yeah.
So it's not the same as.
It adds significant cost.
So.
Do we have an amount of money that's in this parking trust?
The last time I checked, it was well over $1 million, but I don't remember how much is in there.
You mean the one here?
Yeah, I don't remember how much
So,
specifically.
eventually, is there a number that we're looking to hit before we look at maybe providing another parking garage somewhere?
We can add a floor onto our current garage. We have structure.
Well, but I think like in another area. I was talking to Ron about it earlier.
The council would have to amend the code because the council passed an ordinance that the rest of our parking that we own is a residential area, and you cannot build a garage in a residential area. So we would have to amend the code so that we could build a garage, like on 95th Street on the other side.
And what about some of these parking spaces, around Town Hall? I don't know, but maybe we could look at doing some kind of a partnership, or maybe some private owners are looking at making renovations and we can add to it. I think we really need something east of Bay Harbor Terrace, even if it's just, it's only a block. but there's like an objection.
There have been, I can just tell you, there have been efforts for some of this stuff, but right now, nothing's coming through so far.
Yes, but I just think looking at the future, from Bay Harbor Terrace East is where we're going to have a lot of use, and
Agreed. I'm just telling you,
really-
there have been efforts. I'm just telling you, it's just, right now, nothing's...
well, just putting it out there to the Bay Harbor universe, if anybody's thinking about modifying their building and wants to talk to the manager about it, maybe, east of Bay Harbor Terrace would be a great target area.
Let me ask, Alan, how much do we have in the parking trust fund?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
Well, here's the financial statement as of,
That's not the parking fund is not the same.
Not the same.
That's
No.
the same as the trust.
Yeah.
no, I'm saying this is the CAFR. As of September 30th, it says here, under deferred inflows of resources, parking trust receipts is 309 grand?
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
For the year?
That's
No, that's not for the year, that's
total,
an
because it's a
asset.
carryover.
Well, that's not an asset, it's actually a deferred.
It's not the total.
I thought it was more than that. But, I don't know.
So that's roughly what we got. Okay, so, all right. So we have, if no one else wants to comment, we have public
Yeah,
comment.
this one in payment plan, it's 30-something thousand.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we have public
Procurement
comment.
policy, and not enough time on the parking trust auditing.
Did you say something?
I was just,
I know you...
I have no
You
inner,
can go
I
to
have
law
no,
school. You like
I have
to
no
talk to
inner
citizens
voice.
and
I have no inner
everything.
voice.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right, we're going to go to public comment. Tucker gives. All
Impulse control.
right.
Have no inner voice.
Nice to see you again, Tucker.
Nice to be here. My name is Tucker Gibbs. My law office is at 3835 Utopia Court in Coconut Grove, and I'm here representing 1048 LLC, which owns the property at 1048 Kane Concourse, as you all know. My client is a long-term property owner on the Kane Concourse, supportive of the town's efforts to encourage more restaurants on Kane Concourse in that commercial area. And they're also very supportive of creating a parking ordinance that recognizes the desirability of mixed-use development in that Kane Concourse area, and one that encourages such development in that area. With that in mind, I have a few questions, just a few, and some suggestions about the proposed ordinance, kind of in line with what you're talking about in terms of detail and getting it straight. In the ordinance, it talks about exempt and non-exempt, and it exempts these uses that are in paragraphs 5 and 6.
What page?
Page
What
3.
page you on?
Page 3. It takes out places of assembly and keeps restaurants, public dining rooms, bars, private clubs, and cocktail lounges. That's Section 5. And Section 6, it takes out buildings used for office, keeps in retail, commercial, adds personal service, miscellaneous uses, and retains business uses. And therein is the problem. How are the terms personal service and miscellaneous uses? And you all may have talked about this in first reading, and I wasn't here, so I apologize if I'm going over ground that you all have already plowed. But the questions of what is a personal service and a miscellaneous use, and how is that defined? How are you all going to make sure that a miscellaneous use, I don't know what that is.
It's defined in our use regulations, and it's also defined on the chapter 13.
Okay, and so is personal service?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's fine. How does the ordinance differentiate between a business use, which is exempt in Section 6, which is Section 6 on page 3, and office and wow, is that 3 minutes?
Yeah, that's the
2 minutes, I'm sorry.
So you get
2
2
minutes.
minutes, but finish
Okay.
your question, so.
And how is that differentiated between office and professional use? And maybe that's defined as well.
Yes.
And if it is, that's fine, because the question I had is, that's fine. The other question I had is, the ordinance exempts all existing buildings in the B1 from Sections 5 and 6. And I was concerned, and I think this goes to the issue that you all were talking about, I think that Councilman Reed brought up. What is the town's plan if and when the market responds to this ordinance, the positive, with many new restaurants and a resulting shortage in parking? And I'm sure that's a dilemma that you all would love, but you also would love to have a plan, and I don't know if that plan is, it's not in the ordinance, obviously, and maybe it doesn't belong there, I don't know.
All right, Tucker.
But,
Hey, we often
Oh,
let
sorry.
attorneys have a little more time, don't you think?
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. Did you speak to I mean, this has been up for a couple months now, so I mean,
Right, and I'm coming in here at this point, at second reading, that's why I said, so, and my suggestion doesn't say, don't do anything tonight. What my suggestion is, and my questions were answered, my question is that when you deal with this potentiality, which was already brought up by one of the council people, is we'd like to see a study. It's very simple. This is a first step, and I figure that it's a first step. And just ask your planner, direct your planner to work with the retail property owners, the lessees, and prepare a comprehensive study of the King Concourse Commercial District. And the study should just include recommendations on how to encourage the more restaurant and retail uses, which this parking ordinance does by one way. That's all it does. It deals with parking, which is a major issue. But also how to provide parking that does serve those uses. Because eventually, if this works, you may have, and God bless you, you're going to have a lot of parking issues because you're going to have a lot of these uses that do not have required parking and will not provide required parking because they don't need to, because they're grandfathered in. So something to look forward to in the future is, okay, let's say this works. What do we do next? Perhaps the garage is the issue, is the solution. Also, and I'm not a business person, but I deal with these issues all the time. When you're actually buying a piece of property and you don't have to have parking, that sounds wonderful. But the question is, if a bank is going to underwrite your loan, one of the questions is going to be, because I've been dealing with this on several issues, the underwriter is going to ask, where's your parking? And if you don't have parking, and you're going to put in a restaurant, and given the fact that restaurants in Dade County at least, you see one today and it's gone tomorrow, and that can be in Miami Beach, Hialeah, here, or anywhere, you want to make sure there is some place where people can park. Because you want to encourage the person to buy the property, and you buy a restaurant property, you want to make sure you have parking. And I get the idea that people who live and work here will walk to the restaurant. And maybe what you do to deal with that is anticipate that instead of you need parking for 1 to 300, you may say, well, gee, we better have parking for at least 1 to 100, somewhere around there. So I just make that suggestion, and thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so we have a motion and a second for item number 10. Any other questions or comments from council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Yaffe.
4.
Councilmember Tricochet.
4.
Councilmember Saber.
4.
Councilmember Reed.
4.
Councilmember Fuller.
4.
4.
Passes.
Okay, number 11, consideration and approval of an ordinance on second reading, amending section 2-1.1 of the town code regarding procurement, limitations, and competitive bidding. After the issue was discussed in the by the town council, I reviewed the current regulations with the town attorney, and as you heard tonight, we're moving forward to streamline and make the procurement code a little more easy to use and less hard to understand.
Okay. I need to read it. An ordinance of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands amending section 20-9 of the town code, updating the monthly, oops, I'm reading the wrong one, sorry. An ordinance of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, amending section 2-1.1 regarding procurement limitations and competitive bidding, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date.
I'll move it. We have a motion. Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, poll vote, please.
Councilmember Fuller.
4.
Councilmember Reed.
4.
Councilmember Saber.
4.
Councilmember Tricochet.
4.
Councilmember Yaffe. He
Just stepped
out. Mayor Leonard.
4.
Passes.
All right, number 12.
Consideration and approval of an ordinance on first reading, amending section 20-9 of the town code, updating the monthly base charges for sewer service.
Okay.
An ordinance of the Town of Bay Harbor Islands amending section 20-9 of the town code, updating the monthly base charges for sewer service, providing for penalties, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for an effective date.
So let me have a question. We never had a 4-inch pipe before?
No.
No.
So the rest of, like, the rest of the infrastructure can support those?
Yeah,
types
oh,
of
yes,
pipe?
absolutely.
All right, so I'll move it.
It's the bigger projects that we're getting.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? Call vote?
Councilmember Tracocche?
4.
Councilmember Sauber?
4.
Councilmember Reed?
4.
Councilmember Fuller?
4.
Mayor Leonard?
4.
Passes.
All right, number 13.
Consideration and approval of a business tax receipt mobile permit application from Easy Fill, Florida LLC, for an on-demand gas delivery service.
I just wanted to mention that I sent in video earlier today just so that you could hear it. The operation of the pump, actually, I was surprised that it was so low myself. Just wanted to mention that.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes.
Come on down. Okay. Hi, how are you?
Good evening.
Very good. All right. Name and address, please?
Jonathan Gross,
Okay.
6039 Collins Avenue.
Okay, great. You want to tell us?
Sure.
Yeah, briefly.
Easy Fill basically is the Uber of gas. And instead of you having to go to the gas station, and I heard Councilman Reed talk about the Causeway Island issue, you basically use an application you download from either the App Store or from Google Play. You order gas on demand. We have currently have 2 8-foot bed trucks that carry the gasoline. And basically, based on the request from the customer, we show up to the home or office and fill up their tank. Our tanks are DOT approved. We have hazmat permission to both transport and disperse fuel. Our drivers are all commercial driver licensed. They all have hazmat certification. And we have various checks and controls in the truck itself to make sure we're just dispensing fuel properly.
Okay. All right.
How long have you guys been in business?
Business opened up last March. We've been live since December of 2016.
December 2000.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I should say, I came across, I don't know if it was you or a competitor, I mean, I assume there are a couple other competitors out there, filling up in front of, like, down the block from my house at about 2 in the morning one night. And it was, even though it might still be 71 decibels, and I listened to the video earlier today, at nighttime, at 2 in the morning, it sounds a lot louder. It doesn't get drowned out, by, quite honestly, when you're out there, JC, as I saw the video, or it was a JC or somebody else was about to get hit by a car. It was one of you guys in the video, so, it's a little, the 71 decibels gets drowned out. At 2 in the morning in residential area, it doesn't get drowned out. It wakes people. It creates a nuisance. It can create something where a dog hears it, starts barking, and that's louder than the 71 decibels when they start going off. I don't have a problem with the service. I don't have a problem with the concept of even going outside the normal hours, beyond 6. I have a problem going 24 hours. I just don't think it's appropriate to go that late at night. And I understand you guys are doing what you can to try and muffle as much of the noise as you can, but you can't prevent noise. And in a residential area, it's just not fair to the residents. Can you get your business done and be done by, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night?
So before I answer your question, the answer is yes. To answer your question, you reside, is it on the island or?
Yeah, we all reside here.
Okay. So we don't, it couldn't have been us because our schedule doesn't go until 2 a.m.
But you're asking for it.
Well, what we asked to do is to try to get what people really require is most of our activity is between, I'd say, 8 p.m. and midnight. There are people who come back from meetings, come back from work, come back from parties, weddings, etc., that they're out of gas and they request. So we're really responding to the demand of the market. If the council requires that we cut off servicing at midnight, for example, we'd be happy to do that. We're not looking to wake anyone up from sleep or disturb the...
I understand, but can you be done? In other words, I don't like the idea of midnight either. First of all, it's a truck and it's slippery slope here. The moment we start allowing additional service vehicles into residential areas late at night, then somebody else says, look, these guys did it. We're also doing something else. We're doing it quietly. And I know you guys, what probably wasn't you, but it's a competitor that's identical, at least that I can see. Can you be done by, if we said 9:30?
What's our noise ordinance kind of kicks in?
Like 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock, I think.
11?
Yeah.
But it's,
If you can, I mean, if it...
Parties and stuff, yeah.
Right, exactly. You have to
but the concept of that
turn
is...
it down by 11 o'clock. I think 11 o'clock is fair.
How about the construction ordinance?
Well, no, but hold
It
on,
should
here's
be
the
like
thing.
the hours of
But
construction.
here's the thing. Yeah, Isaac, think of it this way. You don't expect your neighbor to have a party every night or every 3 nights. If somebody says, I love this service, and maybe it's a great service, I haven't used it, but maybe I will in the future. The fact of the matter is, if they say I've got 2 cars, between my wife and I, and we're just going to alternate every 3 days or 2 days who gets filled, all of a sudden you have this noise every night or every other night. That's not the intent.
Yeah, you know what, I think that's kind of like way out of the ballpark type of estimation, because I don't think anybody fills up like every other night or, every 3 nights. What, you guys must have statistics. How often is the service used? Like by one client?
So I would say, guess easily 90% of our business is concluded by 11 p.m.
Okay, how often do they, the frequency of use?
About every 10 days is a good customer would be about every 3 times a month.
Right.
So it adds up, though.
I think there was also one, if I may interject, I have the same exact concerns as you. First of all, I think this business is genius. It's just, I can't get over these businesses like this. They're so smart. So kudos to you guys on that. I have the exact same concerns that you have, and I think they're amplified on the East Island, because there's just the population is so much more dense that you may have one return customer every 10 days. Well, when you have the buildings that are going up and the people that are coming around, that is incrementally larger. I feel the same way that you do. I do think 11 o'clock is too late.
Yeah.
I think about if I were to have another child and someone were to woke up my child at 11 o'clock at night, you wouldn't want to know me. No, nobody wants any of that. I feel like we can come to an agreement. I kind of feel like somewhere between like 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night is fair. I think anything beyond that is just going to be, it's not going to work in Bay Harbor.
I have another question. Maybe you addressed this when I was out of the room before, but the video that Marlene sent us showing you, I guess, filling up the truck, the town manager's truck. It's parked in front of town hall, and I live in a single-family house, and presumably, if I used your service, you'd come and fill it up in my driveway.
Correct.
But let's say your customer lives in a 7-story building with parking, could be valet parking or not valet parking. How do you provide the service? You have to bring the car out onto the street?
So honestly, it depends on the building. There's some buildings that actually where it is valet service, and it's primarily valet service. The customer actually asks valet to bring the car around, and we fill up in front. There are several buildings that have asked us to include them as additional insured on our policy, where we go inside the garage, we have access, and we fill up the car. And
so your truck goes into the
it's not a tanker truck. It's an 8-foot. It's like a Ford F-250.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
right.
So it does.
I'm just curious how that works.
Is that safe, bringing a fuel truck underneath the building?
Yeah, permits from every authority.
Right.
But to move it underneath, to bring it in the garage,
but I think on some of
to
the...
get it on the road, not necessarily to bring it in. If you have a problem, all of a sudden an explosion underneath the house, underneath the building.
How about in front of the building? I mean, you guys are talking about which hours? I thought we were going to approve whether or not we wanted this in the town.
No. I could give them a mobile license. I could have given it to them already. The issue was the after hours.
Right. They have the right to...
Yes.
I just have to tell you, from an environmental and a safety perspective, I'm sure you have all your appropriate licenses and everything, but maybe every 6 months you watch the evening news and you see some incident at a gas station, and that's a facility that's designed and has all kinds of safety issues, and it's nowhere near a residence. I don't like the idea of a mobile gas station coming into a residential area. And then when I heard the video today, I thought that noise was horrendous. And yeah, you might be in front of my building, and some people who were there pointed out that the side of the truck, there wasn't very much noise at all. So what if you're servicing the residents next door, and I'm innocently not getting your gas, and I have to hear the noise that emanates out the back? I think it's an unnecessary service, to tell you the truth. I get food delivered, I've had groceries delivered, but since the nature of a vehicle is you got to drive it somewhere, so you inevitably have to drive it right past a gas station. And we have one of the loveliest gas stations in all of Florida that I've ever seen. It's a great place. You have a breeze. You know, I think it's unsafe.
Still a gas station.
Well, but still, if this is going to be approved, and, you know, I would not vote for it if I had the option at all, nothing personal, congratulations on your business, but my concerns are environmental, safety, quality of life means things like noise that people shouldn't have to put up with unnecessarily. It's just one more thing. We already have construction trucks and school buses that are necessary. They have to come here to do what they have to do. People don't have to have gas delivered. They can easily go get it within a mile of town.
But you know what, I disagree with you. I mean, people have the right to do it. Just for example, environmentally, if the milkman started coming again, I mean, that's been gone for 30, 40 years, but if they started that up again, you know, environmentally, that's not the best thing, but people have a right to have that service, to have it delivered.
I just think it
don't have a problem
crosses the
with
line.
service. The hours are the issue for me, but let me just say one thing, and just answer Bob's question before. I think it was Bob, you asked where they park. The one I saw, and like you said, it was your competitor, but I'm assuming they do the exact same thing. The resident lived in, his house was gated, so what he had done at 2 in the morning is he had left his car out on the side of the street, just, you know, out there, and then the truck had to park, because there's not that much space, had to park actually in the street in order to be able to fuel them out there. So he had left it on the outside of the gate, because they don't want to be disturbed by the noise at 2 in the morning. So like that, like that for the neighbors.
Let me
Right,
respond to
exactly,
that,
but,
Mr. Bullock, for a second. So I wouldn't judge every book by the same cover. We have good competitors. We know which competitor it is that's there. We know very clearly what they follow and don't follow. They are not compliant. I'm not sure they're going to be in business much longer for a lot of reasons. There are lots of things about how to construct the trucks, what permits you have to have. What I'm saying is that we do things very differently. The reason why we actually did not look for the permit, and we've gone to every building management first, and is to make sure we do things by the book and make sure we understand that we convey what we're trying to accomplish in order to make sure that we're doing it as cleanly, as safely as possible. I wouldn't judge it the same way.
I'm giving you every benefit of the doubt, and if we're able to pare down the hours, I'm going to vote in your favor, okay? Just so you understand, my only issue is, like I said, the late nights, and especially when we talk on the East Island, it was a good point that you brought up. If there's 30 units in the building, and even if somebody uses it once a month, guess what? That's back to once every day. Yeah. You know, 30 different people. I mean, it's just, the math shows up, you have this truck out there in the middle of the night. I don't love the concept of late nights.
You just said something, that you talk to every building management.
When we go into a building, we speak to building management first. We don't speak to valet, we don't speak to the residents.
Okay, no, I thought you just said that you had gone to all the building managers.
That's what I said.
Oh.
Where they have a customer, in other words.
Oh, where you have a customer, okay.
Even before we have a customer, if you want to enter a certain building, we ask the building, somebody asks the building management first, whether it's the customer themselves or ourselves.
Well, that's polite.
To make sure, well, it's the right thing to do. We're going on premises, we want to make sure it's correct. So we're really not, it's atypical in terms of, we do from a regulation standpoint, from a legal standpoint, make sure that we're covered. I appreciate your position, you know, obviously I'm sitting over here and...
So can you guys function it from 7:30 to say...
We don't have anybody really that early in the morning. The earliest we'd have somebody is 8:30 in the morning.
Okay, perfect.
That's usual.
So from 8 to 10?
How about like construction hours?
No,
It's the same noise. It's like a generator.
Well, the only issue is the reason the service is there is that people want it when they're not at work.
Exactly.
Right by the gas station.
Well, no, but I understand you don't like the service, but if residents want to use the service, and, you know, they don't want to use it when they're gone, they need their car there. So I have no problem saying 8. Is 10 too late, or do you want to do that?
I like 10.
I think 10 is fair. I think 10 is fair. I would, and I think about myself again, if I had a baby and I heard something at 9:30 or 9:45 at night, I would probably accept it. You know, but if I heard something from 10 o'clock on, the nasty would come.
I have some questions. Just how would you handle hypothetically like a spill or something like that? Because one, you know, I had some concerns. You know, again, it is ingenious as far as the business model, but you know, one of the things is when you're the first to create a platform that doesn't exist before, it is somewhat unregulated, and your business, with all due respect, is unregulated to the extent of it's a new concept. You know, it's not, Dade County is the only county apparently in the state that does this. And because of the size of your truck, you're not regulated to the extent of larger size trucks. So, yes, you have the, the DOT permit and whatnot, but as far as the state of Florida, there's certain things that other people do that you don't have to comply with because your vehicle is smaller. That's my understanding. One of my concerns was, if you're going to be working at night, what happens if there's a spill? When you have a gas station, the amount of money that's invested in the infrastructure is significant. For example, if you are gassing up your car at any gas station, including ours, and some gas ends up on the ground, guess what? It doesn't permeate into the water. It doesn't go into the bay. It gets collected because the infrastructure does that. If you spill gas on our street, it actually, if you spilled enough of it, it would go into Biscayne Bay because everything runs into the bay.
No matter what you spill, it goes in the bay.
Right, exactly. So just how would you handle that at night? Because it's just something, I looked at your website, I couldn't find anything about something like that.
So, if I can respectfully, you asked lots of questions, lots of things. So there are other companies not in the state that do operate. In California, there are 4 or 5 right now that are operating.
Okay.
As far as what's required, we do follow best practice as if we were an 11,600-gallon tanker truck driving on I-95.
Okay.
We have the right controls and shipping papers that we make our drivers sign before and after to make sure that we have the right type of regulation, if you would, that we're watching everything. From a spill standpoint, which is what I think your biggest concern was, there are 6 controls on the back of the truck, and I think I pointed it out today to the manager and to Ms. Siegel, that you can't just walk in and spill. There are various places what you have to have in place, and things in control, that until you actually can dispense fuel. So typically what's going to happen is the car is either half empty or empty, and with some gas. The time where something could happen typically is going to be when we finish pumping, and the nozzle has to come out. So there are, again, 2 places on the machine itself that we bought. Our equipment is over $20,000. We're not just walking around with a canister of gas trying to pump.
You have a
two-step process that closes the fuel from pumping. We have a hazmat kit on the truck that in case something spills, and we have an 800 number, a company, that we pay for, that if, God forbid, something should happen, we actually have a toll-free number that the driver can call right away, do the things they have to do before EPA comes down and everything. So we spend a lot of time and money. Doesn't mean we have all the answers, but we spend a lot of time and money on being controlled and making sure we're building a business for the long term, not just to do transactions on the short term.
And by the way, just so you know, the 3 things you mentioned, the 2-step process, the hazmat kit, and also the private company, were 3 of the same things that Durham mentioned, because I called Durham last month just to check on this, because, to be honest, I really, this wasn't necessarily my wheelhouse. And those were 3 of the things that they mentioned. Do they have a 2-step process? Do they have hazmat? Those are actually 3 of the things that Durham specifically mentioned. So, because like they said, I think this is something that's going to be probably regulated by the state next year, because it's such a new concept. So, I think it's something that, I guess probably the size of the amount of liquid you can carry, I think they're probably going to lower that. They're probably going to put some type of restriction on that at a statewide level. But those are things that I looked for, because, obviously no one wants to, pollute the environment. Nobody, I don't think that's anyone's intent. But I have to admit, I have a 2-year-old. No one wants to wake up your 2-year-old in the middle of the night. Could we do this? And I think maybe this might be. Yeah. Well, we don't have any public comment. Is there comments?
There's no public left.
There's nothing. You have to fill out the form, guys. You should know that. All right, come on. Yeah, go fill out the form. So let me ask you a question. Would you be amenable to something maybe like a trial system? Because, it's good that you came and you asked for something, but could we do something maybe on a part?
Well, my question is why? Yeah, they're entitled to
the business section. The only issue is with the hours.
No, as far as the hours, and see if people.
But your issue. Oh, I see what you were saying. But your issue. So your issue is not with the service, right?
We can't regulate it.
Right. That's my point. So
no.
So right now, we can always change it back. Here's the thing: we're giving them the rights. But if there's a problem, if there are complaints and people start getting upset, obviously, we have the ability to to go ahead and, you know, alter an ordinance very quickly and...
Well,
No, we're giving an
I think we have to
Yeah,
alter the ordinance.
we can then create a scenario.
If they're a nuisance, we can cite them for violation of the noise ordinance.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
I just want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a situation where people start complaining because we did, 11 versus 10 or something like that, you know.
They did the sound meter, though, from 70 feet away, and it didn't even register on the meter.
Right.
That's what JC said.
Just to be clear, I could have issued a mobile permit from 9 to 6, which is
Right.
our regular hours. They're asking beyond that, so that's why they're here. Anything that you approve today, if you so choose to do, will be put on the mobile permit, so that when they're here, they have to carry that with them. If the police stops them, it will say, you're allowed to be here from this time to that time, so
I
it'll be...
know, we're only talking about beyond, before 9 or after 6.
I have a question about enforcement. Okay, so the ordinance is within 100 feet. So you were at various stages. You started off very close to the truck, and then you backed way out to, you said 70 feet is where you didn't hear anymore? Okay. We have lots here that are 75 feet wide. So if you're next door, you know what I'm saying? So what if you happen to be parked right over the property line from a neighbor, and they have to absorb all that sound, and it may violate, it might be the 71 decibels. So are you going to give them a
Well, I moved
location?
away, but I did not measure the whole time I was backing out. So I know that when I was right next to the truck, it was 70, 71. When I was about 70 feet away, it didn't register. I don't know what it was when it was 40 feet. I didn't stop there.
But how are you going to enforce that if the truck is gone, or, you know? So someone says, hey, I just woke up, my baby woke up, and I heard this noise late at night, but it's gone already.
If we have issues, we're going to have to readdress it later on, but the fact of the matter is, right at this point...
Continuous
Yeah.
complaint.
Right.
We'll know, and we'll deal with it, but the fact of the matter is, they're not tripping the numbers that are, as far as the decibels. The only issue is at night, if it gets too loud and you start, like I said...
I have a question for you, Mr. Gross. The video that I saw that I can't pull up now for some reason, the back two doors of your truck were open, and that's where your controls are, or is a generator there?
Right, so the entire fuel station, we call it, is in a cabinet.
Cabinet.
Fireproof cabinet.
Yeah.
The tailgate comes down, we lock the cabinet gets open. Within the cabinet is the fuel station, which is basically where it controls the register, the meter, and the pump. The noise that you do hear standing right in front of the truck, and we all heard it in the morning, is when you're standing probably with, let's call it 5 feet, 10 feet away. If you stand on either side of the truck, even if you're parallel to the doors, or you stand further away, there really isn't a lot of sound.
Is there any way, can you close those doors, or can that be buffered? Can it be insulated?
Right. So what we've done in a couple of places where, and I've been on a few riding shotgun, it could be a little noisy at night, so we have to close it. We have a bungee cord, we close it just to keep, and it muffles the sound. And the fact is, the first beginning of the front of the tank is actually looking noise in the back. So we really do try to consider what's happening around us environmentally to avoid as much noise as possible.
And so that equipment, what makes the noise? Is it a generator back there? It's a pump.
It's an electric pump.
An electric pump, too. Wow. Because I was going to ask if you could go to electric, I assumed it was gas since you carry gas, but...
Don't use up your own project.
Leave it to the professionals.
The question I have, just last question, is do you need before 9 then? I know you said that you
9
really
a.m.?
did. Yes.
I think 8:30 is really is a good time. People before they go to work, depending on what time they go to work, works that well. It just seems to work what we have in Bal Harbor as well, in terms of try to do everything in one place. So we're not there every night. You said every night someone's coming. It isn't like that. I mean, I wish for business-wise we were coming every night. That's not what it is, at least not yet.
I'm just thinking for the kids in school,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, we have public comment. Elijah Sauer. How's it going?
Members of the board, thank you so much for opening to the public. So I'm, someone who has used EasyFill.
State your name and your address.
Oh, my name is Elijah Salver, 9381 East Harbor Drive.
Let him say that.
So I'm a frequent user of EasyFill, and I can attest, I understand that the noise complaints are a big thing, but it's actually not. We're thinking figuratively speaking, as if you were in their house, right in front of the window, thinking, okay, where's that truck coming from? Like, you look outside, like, you can't hear it. People leave to the airport at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. Do you hear their cars go off? I mean, yeah, of course it's like an unprecedented nuisance, but if someone is actually leaving and trying to leave quietly, imagine, like, you wouldn't actually hear them. So that's why, and also in regards to the environmental component of it, they're trying to save as much gas as well, so I doubt that they'd want spillage.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay, next we have Moshe Simon. All right. Handwriting like mine.
Yeah, sorry about that. Moshe Simon, 1160 103rd Street. Thank you for having me here, and I appreciate you guys giving EasyFill an opportunity. I've actually also used EasyFill before, and I think it's extremely convenient. I'm happy that it seems like most of you are willing to give them a shot, and I think it is important, though, that you do give them as late as possible in the evening, as Councilman Fuller said, that you want them to be used as late as possible. If people who are coming home from work, they can easily stop at a gas station. It's for the people that are going to be wanting gas late at night. Regards to what you were saying regarding the, I guess it was curfew, 11 o'clock at night, when you have to kind of tone it down. Technically speaking, anybody could have a party every single night until 11 o'clock at night, and you can't really do much about it. So although that is officially, if that would happen, maybe you would have to come back to that and revisit it as well. The same kind of concept can be applied here, where if it's something that happens in the same place at the same time every single night, it might be worth to revisit. But until that does happen, I'm not sure if it's such an issue that it would need to be addressed now. So as a user of EasyFill, I would request that the council and the board definitely think about the latest time possible to use EasyFill, as that is usually the most convenient time for people who want to use it. And besides that, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, so any other comment? Because I would ask that we would, whatever time we have, that we have at least a, let me ask you a question. Hypothetically, let's say we get a lot of complaints, but technically they're still in compliance with the noise ordinance. So let's say they've just reached that level, but they're complying, but people are complaining. Marlene, can we can't go back and unring the bell and take this back once you give it, it's over.
Yes, you may.
We may? Okay.
You absolutely may.
Okay, so.
This is like a license.
Okay, so we can come back, so if people start complaining, we can change it if it becomes an issue.
You can revisit the issue and modify the hours or revoke all hours after 6 p.m.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to be in a position that if listen, people don't complain, it's not going to be an issue. So if people complain, then, then obviously it's going to be
You have the right to evaluate the complaints too. Obviously, there's always a small group that may complain regardless.
So are we on for 8:15 to 10? Is that?
8:30. Can you repeat that? So if it's in a certain small group who always complain, then it doesn't count? Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I said. What I said is...
Explain.
What I said is you can evaluate what, if any, complaints are to determine the reasonableness of them.
But then you said there's always a small group that complains about everything?
I said there are some people who will automatically complain and appeal things because they didn't agree with it beforehand. I find that quite a bit. Not just in this municipality. I'm not using this municipality as an example, but I've had plenty of experience handling many appeals through the years for people who said they didn't like it, they didn't want it, and then they appealed it or complained about it thereafter filing appeals.
All right.
I'm just saying that the town has the opportunity to evaluate and determine reasonable.
Right.
That's your standard as a matter of law.
Right, but
I'm not.
Okay, I think we...
But you just mentioned, a group, so I just wanted to clarify that and give you the opportunity.
I'm not identifying you or any other group.
Oh, I didn't say me.
Okay.
I never said that.
What hours do we feel like?
The only ones at 8? No, my question is, can you work with 8:30? That's what the request is in the morning, or is 8 necessary? I mean, that's the only issue.
I think 8 is better.
I think 8 is better, but if you, I mean, the problem, you wanted 8:30, but I think 8 because you have people that are on leave for work, they can do it beforehand, that's the only issue.
I'm good with 8 to 10.
8 to 10.
Is that, would you be happy with that result?
Assuming there aren't as many complaints as I think Councilman Reed thinks that, Councilperson Reed thinks we're going to have, can we adjust it to 11 o'clock?
You can always come back to us and ask, you can always come back. Let's just see what's, this is a good test to 8 to 10, and if you get jammed with business and we start getting calls, people saying, listen, we want more, that's what we're here for.
I don't have to be till midnight, but the hour difference, because of the again, you drive the place makes a difference. So I'm happy to take the 10 just to have some really...
Hold on a second, Ron, what time does the gas station actually close? Like 10? Yeah, it closes at 10. So...
I gotta be honest, that extra hour, I'll vote up to 10. You're gonna lose me from 10 to 11.
No, understood.
Just being completely
We're
transparent.
looking to get permission, so 10 o'clock is fine. I just want to make sure that if it does work and people are satisfied, we can come back and say the extra hour would make a difference to us. If it doesn't, back. I hope it does.
In fact, you can come to meeting right here.
If this gets approved, you can always come back. If it doesn't get approved, you can't come back.
Exactly. Okay, so we're amending it from 8 to 10.
I would like a motion and a second.
Because we don't have a motion, so...
Yeah.
I'll move it that we allow Easy Fill extended hours, and their hours of operation in Bay Harbor Island should be 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, all right. Any comments? Hearing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against?
Opposed?
Okay, very good.
Now, speaking of, if their competitor, if we're, by doing what we just did, give their competitor like an edge in this town, is there any teeth that we have, with this regarding their competitor pulling up at 2 a.m. in front of Josh's house, and filling up the neighbor's car?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they can't do it.
Okay, so...
They would have to have a mobile permit. The police would be able to enforce our ordinances just the same.
They've been servicing some of our residents.
They shouldn't have been. They've been.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was curious.
That's how we found out.
Quite honestly, it took, we spent a lot of time researching the issue because there are so many regulations, and we were quite surprised that they complied in every which way. Really, you guys did an outstanding job from a regulatory standpoint.
All right, thank you so much. All right,
Thank you very much.
Number 14.
Item 14, approval of a request for an extension to close an TDR agreement between JCG, Bay Harbor Island LLC, Bijou Development, and the town. The council did give this development extension to close on TDR agreement until May 11, 2017. It has been paying 5% of the purchase price each month, $11,875. Mr. Emster is here tonight for an additional 6 months. He's looking to attain another 6-month extension.
Is this a picture of the Indian circles or something like that? Are these like the ancient burial ground that you're hitting?
I do not think there's architectural significance on the site.
Poltergeist 3 here.
This is actually an old picture. You're further along than this.
No. If I may, Matthew Amster, the law firm of Burke, Howard, Ellen, Fernandez, and Larkin at 200 South Biscayne Boulevard in Miami, here today representing JCG Bay Harbor. I have with me here tonight, should we have further in-depth questions, I have the project manager, Robert Morales. I have from Coastland, their construction general contractor is Harry Borgoyo, and Charles Benson is our architect for the project. We had actually hoped to not be here. We are very close to getting the full building permit issued. What I have passed out to you is actually recent photos. The first two are from April, which show we have a valid and issued foundation permit, and so the site has been mobilized and prepared for foundation work, and the last page is actually them getting into the ground that's, I think, the pre-existing foundation work that they need to work on. So
Let me save you some time if I can.
Sure.
Okay, so look, my understanding, you guys are making a good faith effort to move forward.
Absolutely.
You're just waiting right now for the fire marshal.
Basically, yes, it's the fire is the only remaining issue. We have a number of approvals from both in the town and outside. Many of them are waiting for basically fire approval. Will set this sort of domino effect to, which we hope to get in the short term. We hope we don't need the 6 months.
You're doing what we've asked you to do. I'll move it. I have no
Right,
problem.
if they like staged all this just to get an extension, then they deserve to get an extension.
This is what we asked you to do. I have no problem.
So again, we hope not to-
all about the fire department.
Again, the request is, as we've been doing all along, where the extension is you pay each month. It's 5% of the cost, which is $11,875, only until such time as we need to, we get the permit issued. So if we don't need the full 6 months, which we hope not to, we only pay for the months that we need.
I'll move it.
Second.
So the first two photos are from about a month ago, and then I understand, because we did have a request from a neighbor about some of the machinery, that it doesn't really show on these first two pages. We were talking about earlier, Ron, the watering.
Yeah, their dewatering pump and the generator are on the side away from the mansard building, the residential building, and they've taken our advice to put shielding around it. It should be negated when they get the full power from FPNL.
Pretty cool.
Okay.
But their electric pump is in, and they have the quiet pack generator, which runs at a low hum. But once they get
temporary
that'll be gone.
Okay, yeah, just so you know that the neighbors are feeling the effects of the noise of that through the night.
And they also told us that they have reached and spoken to the president of the Mansard, and we're going to make them aware that they're trying to attenuate the noise from the pump.
Right.
Until it gets hooked up to the electric, which is very close, I believe.
Yeah, that should happen very soon so that this issue will
Thank you.
go away, certainly.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? All right, unanimous?
Thank you all very much.
All right.
You owe me a check for me.
Number 15?
Number 15, consideration approval of an award of contract BHI 179 to Stone Concept Miami for repairs to valley gutter in front of, on 95th Street in front of the fire garage, in the amount of $13,610. It was advertised, we only got one bidder, but this is the same company that did the work on the West Island, replacing all the gutters.
Okay.
They're using stronger concrete, extra rebar, and they had to remove obviously they had to remove the old stuff, and they're plating the concrete, plating it so the fire department can continue to use the facility, and it gives it time to really reach its full potential and strength.
I'll move it.
A motion? Second. And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
You got it. Number 16.
Last, discussion and approval of a request for landscaping and irrigation maintenance for the town properties right-of-ways. We just show you the bid package that will be going out, if you approve it, and we should be, that's it,
I have to ask one question. What'd I do to you, Ron? If you look, every single corner seems to be maintained. It says landscape maintained, except mine. Entire West Island, the only one was missing. It's the corner.
I will make sure we get that.
He wants to show that he's not biased.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. I was like, looking, I'm like, wait.
By the way, earlier we mentioned I think, Isaac, you mentioned, like, what changes we had for procurement. This is an example of something I remember I proposed years ago, that now you have to bring back RFPs of a certain level. So staff used to be able to just put it out, now they have to bring it to council before, so we have an opportunity to look at the RFP before it goes out on the street. So it's another example.
Yes.
So,
You're here to procurement reform.
there you go. All right, so do I have a motion and a second?
I'll move it.
Okay.
Second.
A motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Any other comments? Motion to adjourn?
This is like 1970.
We're done, 9:03.